What happens when royalty walks onto a morning show and forgets that respect goes both ways? In just 39 seconds, one comment would turn a friendly interview into the most shocking on-air meltdown in Good Morning America history. It started like any other morning. The lights were bright, the cameras were rolling, and Sam Champion was ready to welcome his guest with the warmth and professionalism he'd become known for over decades in television. Prince Harry walked onto the set, and right away, something felt different. The energy wasn't right. Where most guests shake hands, smile, maybe crack a joke to ease the nerves, Harry sat down without so much as a hello. Sam, ever the professional, smiled anyway. "Welcome. It's great to have you here," Sam said, extending his hand across the desk. Harry looked at it for a moment, then finally shook it, but his grip was loose, almost dismissive. Sam pulled his hand back and jumped right into the interview, hoping to warm things up. "So, let's talk about your new projects. You've been busy lately. What's been keeping you occupied?" Sam asked, leaning forward with genuine interest. Harry shifted in his seat, looking almost annoyed by the question. "Well, Sam, I've been doing the work that actually matters. Real work, not just sitting behind a desk reading off a teleprompter." The studio went quiet. You could feel the temperature drop. Sam's smile stayed on his face, but his eyes showed the flicker of surprise. The crew behind the cameras exchanged glances. This wasn't how these interviews usually went. Sam kept his cool, because that's what he does. "I see. Well, I think a lot of people would say that informing the public is important work too. But tell us more about your projects." Harry leaned back, crossing his arms. "You know what the problem is with shows like this? You ask questions, but you don't really want the truth. You want sound bites. You want me to play a part." Sam tilted his head slightly, still maintaining his composure. "Actually, we just want to have a conversation. That's what we do here every morning. We talk to interesting people about interesting things. You're interesting. So let's talk." But Harry wasn't having it. "Interesting? Is that what you call it? Because from where I'm sitting, this feels like an interrogation." Now the audience was starting to shift uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the light-hearted morning show moment they'd expected. Sam could feel it too, but he pressed on, trying to steer things back on track. "Well, I apologize if you feel that way. That's certainly not my intention. How about we talk about something you're passionate about? I know you care deeply about certain causes." Harry's expression didn't soften. If anything, he looked more irritated. "You know what I'm passionate about, Sam. I'm passionate about people being real, being authentic, not hiding behind these fake morning show smiles." The words hung in the air, like smoke after a fire. Sam's smile finally faded. Just a touch. He'd been in this business long enough to handle difficult guests, but this was crossing a line. Still, he tried one more time to salvage the interview. "I assure you, there's nothing fake about wanting to have a respectful conversation," Sam said, his voice calm but firm. "Maybe we got off on the wrong foot here. Let's start over." Harry shook his head. "There's no starting over, Sam. This is exactly the problem. Everyone wants to pretend. Everyone wants to smile and nod and act like everything's perfect. Well, it's not perfect." Sam sat up straighter. "You're absolutely right. The world isn't perfect, and nobody on this show has ever pretended it is. We talk about real issues here every single day. Climate change, social justice, health crises, real things that affect real people. So I'm not sure where this is coming from." That's when Harry made the comment that would change everything. He leaned forward, pointing his finger at Sam. "The problem with people like you, Sam, is that you think you're important. You think because you're on television every morning, you matter. But you're just a weatherman who got lucky." The studio gasped. Actual gasps. You could hear them even over the sound of the cameras. Sam's face went from surprised to something else entirely. Not anger exactly, but something harder. Something with backbone. "Excuse me, Sam said, his voice dropping lower. I've spent 30 years earning the trust of millions of people. I've covered hurricanes. I've reported from disaster zones. I've informed the public during crises. I've done my job with integrity and respect. And I've never, not once, treated a guest the way you're treating me right now. Harry scoffed. Oh, here we go. The speech about integrity. You know what, Sam? You're proving my point. You can't handle the truth. You can't handle someone calling you out. Sam shook his head slowly. Calling me out for what? Exactly? For doing my job? For asking you questions? For being professional? Because if that's what you think deserves to be called out, then I think we have very different ideas about respect. Your idea of respect is everyone kissing up to you, Harry said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Everyone telling you how wonderful you are, how amazing your show is. Well, I'm not going to do that. Sam's expression remained steady. I don't need anyone to kiss up to me. I've never asked for that. What I do ask for is basic courtesy. The same courtesy I've extended to you since the moment you arrived. You're acting like I've attacked you somehow, but I haven't. I've asked you normal questions. Questions we ask every guest who sits in that chair. Normal questions? Harry repeated, leaning forward. There's nothing normal about any of this. This whole setup, this whole show, it's designed to make you look good and make your guests dance like puppets. The audience was completely silent. Now, you could have heard a pin drop in that studio. Sam took a deep breath, and you could see him making the choice to try one more time to reach through to Harry. I'm sorry you feel that way, Sam said, his voice softer now. I really am, but I think you're projecting something onto this situation that isn't there. We invited you here because we thought our viewers would be interested in hearing from you. We thought you had important things to say, and I still think that. But you have to actually be willing to say them instead of attacking me. Harry sat back down suddenly, but his body language was still closed off, defensive. You want me to say things? Fine. I think shows like this are part of the problem. I think they create this false reality where everything is sunshine and smiles and nobody talks about what's really going on. Sam nodded. Okay, that's a perspective. I don't agree with it, but it's a perspective. Can you elaborate on that? What would you like to see? Different? But Harry wasn't interested in elaborating. He was interested in fighting. What I'd like to see is honesty. Real honesty. Not this manufactured version where everyone pretends to get along. But we're not pretending, Sam said, his patience clearly wearing thin. Or at least, I'm not. I genuinely wanted to have a good conversation with you. I still do, if you're willing. But you keep throwing up these walls, these accusations. You're fighting against something that isn't even happening. Harry shook his head dismissively. You just don't get it, do you? You're so deep in your own world, your own bubble, that you can't see how it looks from the outside. Sam leaned forward again. Then help me understand. Explain it to me. Use your words to make your point instead of using them to tear me down. Because right now, all you're doing is proving that you came here with an agenda that had nothing to do with having an actual conversation. Respect? Harry laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about respect? You people in the media destroyed my life. You chased my mother. You made my childhood a nightmare. And now you sit here and talk to me about respect? The conversation had gone completely off the rails. Everyone in the studio could feel it spiraling. Sam's co-hosts at the desk nearby looked at each other, unsure whether they should step in. But this was Sam's interview, and they trusted him to handle it. Sam took a breath, trying to find the right words. I understand that you've been through things that most people can't imagine. I truly do. And I'm sorry for the pain you've experienced. The loss of your mother was a tragedy that touched people around the world. But I'm not those people. I didn't chase anyone. I didn't write tabloid stories. I didn't intrude on your privacy. I report the weather, and I talk to guests on a morning show. And right now, I'm just trying to have a conversation with you. A conversation? Harry's voice rose slightly. This isn't a conversation. This is you sitting there acting like you're innocent, like you're not part of the same machine that ruined my life. Sam's jaw tightened just slightly. I've been nothing but respectful to you. I understand you have pain. I understand you have anger. But I am not the target for that anger. I'm just a person trying to do my job, and I've given you every courtesy. Harry waved his hand dismissively. Courtesy. That word again. You think courtesy means anything? Courtesy is just another word for fake. No, Sam said firmly. Courtesy is how civilized people treat each other. It's how we show that we value one another as human beings. And I've shown you that courtesy, but you've shown me nothing but disdain from the moment you sat down. Harry stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. You know what? I don't need this. I don't need to sit here and be patronized by someone who thinks they're better than me. Sam stayed seated, his hands folded on the desk. I have never once suggested I'm better than you. I've treated you with nothing but courtesy since you walked on this set. The same courtesy I show every single guest. Courtesy? Harry's voice was rising now. You call this courtesy? Sitting there with your smug face, acting like you're doing me a favor by letting me be here? Sam stood up now too, slowly, deliberately. I'm not smug. I'm professional. There's a difference. And yes, we did invite you here. We thought it would be a good opportunity for you to share your perspective. But instead of sharing anything constructive, you've spent this entire time attacking me personally. Because you deserve to be called out, Harry shot back. For what? Sam's voice was louder now, more forceful. What exactly have I done to deserve this? Tell me specifically. Give me one concrete example of how I've wronged you in this interview. Harry opened his mouth, then closed it. He couldn't give an example because there wasn't one. So instead he pivoted. This whole thing is wrong. The format, the questions, the way you sit there acting superior. I'm sitting in my chair, on my show, asking you questions, Sam said. That's literally my job. That's what I do every single day with every single guest. Some of those guests are world leaders. Some are celebrities. Some are everyday people with extraordinary stories. And I treat all of them with the same respect. You're the only one who's ever responded like this. The weight of that statement hung in the air. The crew nodded slightly. They'd all worked on this show long enough to know it was true. Sam was known for being kind, for being fair, for making his guests feel comfortable. This was unprecedented. The crew was frozen. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every second of this disaster. Sam finally stood up too, facing Harry directly. I think we need to end this interview, Sam said, his voice steady and clear. This isn't productive for anyone. Not for you, not for me, not for our viewers. Harry pointed at him again. There it is. You can't handle it. The moment someone challenges you, you shut it down. That's exactly what I expected. Sam shook his head. No, that's not what this is. This is me recognizing when something has gone beyond a conversation and become something else entirely. I've given you every opportunity to have a respectful dialogue. You've chosen not to take it. I chose not to play your game, Harry shot back. There's no game, Sam said, and his voice had an edge to it now, a firmness that showed he was done trying to accommodate this behavior. There's just basic human decency. There's showing up to a conversation with a willingness to engage in good faith. You didn't do that. From the moment you sat down, you came in with hostility and contempt. And I've tried, I really have, to move past it. But I can't have you standing here insulting me, insulting my profession, insulting this show. Harry's face was red now. You think you can tell me what to do? You think you have that authority? I think I have the authority to decide what happens on my set. Yes, Sam said, his voice unwavering. And right now, I'm deciding that this interview is over. You're kicking me out? Harry said, his voice incredulous. You're actually kicking me out? Sam nodded. I am, because this isn't an interview anymore. This is you using our platform to attack me personally, and I won't stand for it. I've been respectful. I've been patient. But there's a line, and you've crossed it. This is ridiculous, Harry said, looking around as if appealing to an invisible jury. This is censorship. This is you silencing me because you can't handle what I have to say. Sam's voice was calm, but firm. You haven't said anything. That's the problem. You haven't shared any insights. You haven't made any meaningful points. All you've done is insult me and my profession. That's not being silenced. That's being held accountable for your behavior. Harry's face was getting redder. Accountable? You're going to lecture me about accountability? Yes, Sam said simply. Because right now, in this moment, you need to be accountable for how you're acting. You can have all the grievances in the world. You can disagree with everything about the media. But that doesn't give you the right to come onto my show and treat me with contempt. Harry looked around at the crew, at the cameras, at the audience. This is unbelievable. This is exactly what I'm talking about. The media can dish it out, but they can't take it. Sam's expression didn't change. I can take criticism. I've taken it for 30 years. But there's a difference between criticism and personal attacks. There's a difference between honest disagreement and deliberate disrespect. You're not interested in a conversation. You're interested in a fight, and I'm not going to give you one. For a moment, Harry just stood there, seemingly shocked that Sam wasn't backing down. Then he ripped off his microphone, the wire snapping as he yanked it from his shirt. Fine, I don't need this circus anyway. Sam remained calm, his hands still resting on the desk. I wish you well. I genuinely do. But this conversation is over. Harry turned toward the exit, then spun back around. You know what, Sam? You're exactly what's wrong with all of this. You pretend to care, but you don't. You're just like all the rest. Sam looked him in the eye. I've shown you nothing but professionalism and respect. If you can't see that, that's not my failure. That's yours. The words landed like a hammer. Harry's mouth opened like he was going to say something else, but nothing came out. He stood there for a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Then he turned and walked off the set, his footsteps echoing through the silent studio. Sam stayed standing, watching him go. Then he turned to the camera, his face composed, his voice steady. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. The camera cut away, but in the studio, nobody moved. The crew, the audience, everyone was still processing what had just happened. Sam sat back down in his chair, took a breath, and waited for the commercial break to end. When they came back on air, Sam addressed what had happened with grace. Well, that was unexpected. Sometimes conversations don't go the way we plan. But that's live television. Let's move on to our next segment. And that was it. No drama, no theatrics. Just a professional handling an impossible situation with dignity. Sam Champion had been tested in a way he'd never been tested before, and he'd passed with flying colors. He'd stood his ground without losing his temper. He'd defended himself without being cruel. He'd ended the interview without making it about revenge or getting the last word. Meanwhile, Harry had walked off that set having shown the world exactly what Sam had accused him of. Entitled, unwilling to engage in good faith, looking for a fight instead of a conversation. His behavior had spoken louder than any of his words. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. On one side, a seasoned professional who knew how to handle pressure, who understood that respect is a two-way street, who recognized when something had crossed a line and had the courage to address it. On the other side, someone who walked into a friendly environment and turned it hostile, who met courtesy with contempt, who blamed everyone else for a situation he had created. Sam had asked simple questions. He'd offered multiple opportunities to reset. He'd remained calm, even as Harry's attacks became more personal. And when it became clear that the interview couldn't continue, he'd made the decision that needed to be made. Not because he was afraid of confrontation, but because he respected his show, his audience, and himself too much to let it continue. Harry's complaint had been that the media was fake, that morning shows were all performance. But in the end, it was Harry who performed. He performed outrage. He performed victimhood. He performed contempt. Sam, meanwhile, was exactly who he appeared to be. A professional doing his job, trying to have a conversation, and maintaining his standards, even when his guest refused to meet them. The irony was thick. Harry had accused Sam of hiding behind a fake smile, of not being real, of not wanting the truth. But when Sam gave him the truth, when Sam called out his behavior directly and honestly, Harry couldn't handle it. He retreated into accusations and insults. He made it personal. He proved that he was the one who couldn't engage authentically. What made Sam's handling of the situation so remarkable was his restraint. He could have matched Harry's energy. He could have fired back with his own insults. He could have made it a screaming match. But he didn't. He stayed in control. He stated the facts. He set a boundary. And when that boundary was crossed, he enforced it. That's leadership. That's professionalism. That's what 3 decades of experience looks like when it's put to the test. Harry's exit from that studio wasn't just physical. It was symbolic. He walked away from an opportunity to have a real conversation, to express his views in a constructive way, to maybe even change some minds. Instead, he chose antagonism. He chose to burn a bridge before he'd even crossed it. And in doing so, he proved every point Sam had made about him. The audience in that studio, the viewers at home, they all saw it. They saw who came in ready to talk and who came in ready to attack. They saw who maintained their composure and who lost theirs. They saw who acted with dignity and who acted with disdain. Sam Champion walked onto that set that morning the same way he'd walked onto it thousands of times before, ready to do his job, ready to treat his guest with respect, ready to have a meaningful conversation. And he walked off that set the same way, with his integrity intact and his reputation enhanced. Harry walked onto that set with a chip on his shoulder and walked off with everyone knowing it. He wanted to expose the fakeness of morning television, but all he exposed was his own inability to engage like a reasonable person. He wanted to challenge the system, but all he challenged was the patience of a man who had done nothing to deserve his hostility. In the end, it took only 39 seconds for one comment to reveal everything. Not 39 seconds for the interview to fall apart. That took longer. But 39 seconds from people like you to the moment everyone in that studio knew this was going to end badly. 39 seconds to show the difference between someone who earns respect through their actions and someone who demands it through their title. Sam Champion didn't need to kick Prince Harry off Good Morning America to prove he was the better man. Harry did that all by himself. Sam just had the wisdom to recognize when enough was enough and the courage to act on it. That's why he's been trusted by millions for 30 years. That's why people turn on their televisions every morning and know they can count on him to be honest, fair, and real. And that's why, when this interview became anything but honest, fair, and real, Sam was the one who had to end it. Not because he wanted to, but because someone had to be the adult in the room. Someone had to maintain the standards. Someone had to show that respect isn't optional, even for royalty. That someone was Sam Champion, and he handled it exactly the way you'd expect from someone who has earned every bit of the trust placed in him, with class, with clarity, and with the kind of quiet strength that doesn't need to shout to be heard. The moment Harry walked off that set, he proved Sam right about everything. And the moment Sam let him go, without chasing, after him, without making it bigger than it needed to be, he proved himself right too. He proved that real authority doesn't come from a title or a birthright. It comes from how you treat people, how you handle adversity, and how you know when to stand your ground. Good Morning America went on that day, just like it does every day. Sam Champion went back to doing what he does best, informing people, making them smile, helping them start their day right. And somewhere, Harry was probably still angry, still convinced he'd been wronged, still missing the point entirely. But everyone watching knew the truth. They'd seen it with their own eyes. They'd heard it with their own ears. And they'd witnessed the exact moment when entitlement met professionalism and lost.